Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am back from vacation. As you can see, I got myself a new shade of red. The joy of having red hair, blue eye, and pale skin means that if I watch the weather forecast, I'm gonna get a sunburn. I'm back, and that means I have a ton of topics to cover. As I'm gonna try to briefly go over the last couple of weeks as I've been gone, but we're also gonna be looking forward to some things that's gonna happen in the near future. First of all, update 16 for Elite Dangerous. A few new things in that, again, Thargoid related stuff. Actually, the thing I want to comment on before we dive into that, while I was gone, I pre-recorded some videos, some like new player guides for Star Citizen, because they were easy, they were fast to do. I could make those in a very short amount of time, so they were easy to make, so I could push those out while I was gone. And there were people commenting under those videos like, why are you posting Star Citizen videos when there's a new Elite patch? I don't know. If people had paid attention, they would know that I'll be gone. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. Update 16 brought us more stuff. There's now a new hunter class of Thargoids called the Scythe. I don't know. This one seems to be less aggressive than the previous one. That doesn't really interdict us as much, but it's more of a collecting thing. It runs around, it seems, and it collects occupied escape pods. It has some new Thargoid hatchbreaker limpets, essentially. They look different, but they are Thargoid hatchbreaker limpets, so they will try to steal either if you have occupied escape pods on board or if you have any human cargo. So that would be if you're running passenger missions, or if you're running with like slaves, imperial slaves, anything like that. If you have that in your cargo hold, they will try to hatchbreak you, and they will be jettisoned into occupied escape pods, which they will then proceed to try and collect and run away with. So the Thargoids are collecting human samples right now, which is kind of scary, to be honest. There's some new surface sites, and also reports some new like Thargoid surface sites that you can go and visit. As far as I've seen, we don't know really a lot about them. There seems to be a thing you can visit right now. There are these new skimmers, Thargoid skimmers, that we also saw at some of the settlements in occupied systems. But again, it's just more Thargoid stuff, and not really a whole lot. I think it's a very thin patch, this one. It didn't really add a lot of things that got me like super excited. Hoping that 17 is going to be a little bit more interesting than 16 was. But following update 16, we also saw fleet carrier jump times increase significantly. This is not uncommon that we see this just around patches. When you have a new patch, Frontier has the system in place where they can increase the jump timers for fleet carriers, thereby lowering the server load that's generated by fleet carrier jumps to make the whole system more stable. And we've seen them use this system in the past, especially around patch releases, so this is quite normal. The reason why I'm talking about this now is because it lasted for a lot longer than we were used to. That is weird because Elite, at least if you use Steam charts, and that's a whole other discussion whether those are reliable. I know that you can't rely 100% on Steam charts because we have players who don't use Steam but has the standalone. We have players on Epic. We have, well, no console players anymore, but Steam charts doesn't tell the whole story, but it can still give us an idea about whether the player interest in Elite is increasing or decreasing. We can compare it month over month. And according to the Steam charts right now, Elite Dangerous is at an all-time low in terms of player numbers, which makes it odd why the fleet carrier jump timers were longer than they was previously. And it made me think that maybe what also happened with update 16, which Frontier hasn't told us about, is that maybe they are reducing server capacity for Elite. That would explain why we're seeing these increased timers, because if they reduce server capacity, and this timing method is something that automatically looks at server capacity, and if there's a certain amount left, it will increase the timers and stuff like, I don't know. This is just a wild guess, but it wouldn't surprise me if Frontier is like lowering the number of servers. I mean, these are all cloud servers, so you can turn them off like that and save some money. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's what's been going on behind the scenes, that with interest in Elite, or with player numbers in Elite declining, Frontier is also lowering the server capacity. Again, I don't know, I have nothing other than the increased timers, or the prolonged timers for fleet carrier jumps. They should be back to normal now, as far as I know. Actually, talking about fleet carriers, update 16 brought a quite nice quality of life thing to fleet carriers. fleet carriers' market prices have so far been capped that you couldn't put the prices lower than, I think it's 5% and no more than 1,000%. So that means no more than 10 times the galactic average was the price. That was a bit of a problem for some materials that players would like to sell, especially when it comes to engineering materials sold at a bartender. A lot of those would be sold at capped prices, and it's not good when you're supposed to try to implement the player economy and that the prices you can take for your materials is capped by in-game mechanics. But Frontier has now increased that cap up to 10,000% of the galactic average. So that's 100 times. So hopefully now we shouldn't see that that being the cap, and that people are now actually going to be able to compete on prices on both engineering materials, but also stuff like tritium and stuff like that. So that's nice to see. I think it's a good change. Small, very small change, but so hopefully something that should make the people that actively use the fleet carrier markets make them a little bit more profit and actually be able to compete on prices. Now I have more elite news. There has recently been some talk in the community all around the whole hacking, or what's Frontier calls account imitation or manipulation. If you're not aware of this, for the last, I'm going to say year and a half almost, probably longer, it has been well known amongst veteran elite players at least, that there are people out there hacking and cheating in Elite Dangerous. They have the ability to both, I think, change their account name and also fly ships that we're not supposed to fly. We've seen video clips that have been surfacing of players flying around in Thargoid ships, and even in some like half-finished, unreleased ships. I think it was the Mamba Light, and also a very bare-bone version of the Panda Clipper. Stuff like that. People have changed their names to some of Frontier's like dev accounts names, so they looked like they were flying on the dev account, even though they were not. And I think the whole thing culminated a couple of years ago when a guy parked a beluga at the entranceway of James Memorial, just blocked it with a beluga, and the thing was just like impossible to kill. The station was just shooting at it, shield wasn't moving at all, just had infinite hit points. It was just impossible to kill. The whole debate about this has surfaced again. Frontier's come out with another statement, long wall of text, basically where they say, of course, the usual as you'd expect, that their team is looking at it, and this is obviously not something they condone. It's not something that should be an elite at all, which I of course agree with. Unfortunately, this seems to be the exact same thing that was going on like for years now, and last time we got a very similar text from Frontier where they said, "Oh, we're looking into it, we're aware of it, you shouldn't do this," but nothing really seemed to happen. So I mean, fingers crossed they're gonna figure it out this time, but I'm not so sure. Unfortunately, I think that's something you're gonna have to accept that you can encounter if you are flying in open. Moving over to Star Citizen, this year's Ship Showdown is about to start. If you're not familiar with the Ship Showdown, it is a mostly out-of-game event where players submit ships that they think is their favorite. All those ships are then bracketed in like a tournament bracket system where they're going to be fighting against each other. And that means each day there's going to be one battle between two ships. And you can then go in and vote for one of those two ships that you think is your favorite. And then they're going to go through this bracket system. It's going to be a final. And then finally there's going to be like a favorite ship amongst the player base. And usually that will then follow by some special paint jobs you can get for those ships. So maybe there'll be some discounts on them, stuff like that. Mostly an outer game thing, but it's often fun to go around and go in and vote every day. And there might be also some freebie items that you can pick up if you go in and vote. The ship showdown, as I said, is about to start. You can now go in and submit your favorite ship. If you go to Robert Space Industries, a big banner at the top, you can't miss it. You have the rest of this week to go and submit. So if you have a favorite ship in Star Citizen that you think everybody should go and vote for, you could go and you can submit it now. And the ones that get submitted the most is of course the ones that are going to make it into the brackets. So go check it out, robotspaceindustries.com. In other news from Star Citizen, there is a new PTU structure. We're still running in waves, but we now have a total of 5 waves of people coming into the PTU. And the waves are as follows. The wave 1 is top active players rated by hours in the previous 2 major patch cycles. And also subscribers and Lagitus Navium Courtier members. So those are people who are either super hyper active in the game, plays a lot of hours, who have an active subscription, or who have spent more than $25,000 on the game. which is a lot of money. Wave 2 is then the next top active players rated by hours. I'm gonna talk more about that later. And then you have the next level of Courtier members. Those will be people who have spent 15,000. Wave 3, then we are down to 2,500. Wave 4, we are down to 1,000. And then finally, Wave 5 is all backers that has an active game pack in the game. So if you have access to the game, everybody gets access in Wave 5. Personally, I don't like this PTU structure very much. First of all, I think it defies the purpose of a PTU. PTU, Public Test Universe. This is where we're supposed to go in and help CIG iron out bugs and find things that doesn't work before it makes it into the live server. And all of a sudden, this becomes a marketing thing. One thing is all the Courtier levels where how much you've spent. That's one thing on its own. The other thing that I don't really like is that you have this whole top active players by hours. Each level, by the way, just says next top active players by hours. As far as I know, they haven't really specified what these levels are. So we don't know, is the wave 1, is that the top 10% or the top 1%? Is wave 2 top 5% or top 20 or top 25%? We don't know. And even if we knew what those levels were, as far as I know, there's no way for us to go in and check where we would place in these brackets. So that means that you could be lucky, basically, to go in and be in one of these brackets, but you wouldn't know before the wave hits, or before that wave is led into the PTU. So the way I see it, as I think it's unlikely people are gonna go and throw 25,000 at CIG in order to get access to a PTU wave. This is essentially CIG just pushing the subscription hard, because subscription is wave 1. That's the first people that get access outside of Evocati, but that's another. Yeah, whatever. But outside of Evocati, first that gets access would be the subscribers or the hyperactive players. Fair enough that you do it by active player numbers. I think it's fine to have a wave structure because you don't want to just open the floodgates on day 1 and then everything crashes. You want to gradually increase it, so I think it's fine to have this wave structure, but that the wave structure is based on how much money you're willing to throw at them. Not a big fan of it, to be honest. I don't really have a better solution, to be honest. Having it divided up by player activity makes sense. I'll probably reduce the number of waves, so have very active players and maybe subscribers in the first wave, and then less active, and then everybody in wave 3. That would works fine for me. I think that's a better structure, but this is the way it is. This is probably the way it's going to be going forward for the foreseeable future. Unless there's a lot of backlash, then I could see CIG go and change that. Anyway, moving on to the live stream. We have now for a very long time, we've had update 320 on Evocati. Those guys over there have been testing it for quite a while. Now, with the announcement of the PTU structure change, that probably means that the PTU is not far away. And as usual, CIG gives us 0 heads up regarding these things. If, by luck, the 320 Wave 1 PTU has hit tomorrow before the live stream goes live, I'm going to go and we're going to play with that, obviously. Since there's nothing in Update 16 in Elite that I really care about, it's all more Thargoid stuff. I'm tired of Thargoid stuff, to be honest, so I'm not going to bother with Update 16 at all. It doesn't interest me. That means that in case we do not have Update of PTU, 320 PTU for Star Citizen. I'm gonna jump back into Breath Edge, so we can finish the story there. Long hello, Dave. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for watching, and also next time, I'll see you guys in space.